I think it's a rigged game. Absolutely. I think that the game needs to be changed. The problem that I have with it is it's not a fair game, right? I don't care whether we're playing a crypto game or we're playing a fiat game, whatever else. What I care is the game and game board fair for all participants, right? And right now it's not. That's the problem. And ultimately, an individual has very little control over their financial destiny outside of whatever they do for value creation, right? Value creation, you can have a lot of control and that's great. But once you start to get outside of that, you get into investments and compounding and where the economy goes and how much your dollar is actually worth over time. Like there's no control over that. You're kind of at the whims of larger forces. And that's not something that I appreciate for myself individually as well as for other individuals, right? Now, if you start to get collective groups together, then of course, then you get the power of lobbying, you get the power of political pressure, you get these other things that can create new opportunities. But those opportunities, again, are often at the expense of the individual, making for an unfair game. I don't like unfair games. So that's my quick way of just that's how I look at this world, and that's my belief within it. I care about the fairness of the game more than I care about exactly what tool or technology allows for that. But I believe that cryptocurrencies and blockchain can be a strong player within that if done well.
Yeah. I'm recommending people just pay attention to Bitcoin and don't pay attention to altcoins. And then I'm recommending, because I'm writing this book and I'm trying to rebrand myself and have a cohesive brand and better marketing and all that stuff to try to educate people on Bitcoin. And I get a bit of cognitive dissonance sometimes when I'll see some protocol release with higher transactions per second or something like that. And I'll be like, is it really Bitcoin only? Should I recommend people just have mostly Bitcoin and then have a little basket of cryptocurrencies that on some fund manages for them or something like that? Or should people just pay attention to Bitcoin?
Like you, I was an early investor in Bitcoin. I got in I think 2011, 2012, right? So like pretty early on. And substantial rewards since that point, right? I didn't maintain all my holdings since then, yes. Even though there was a substantial sell-off in 2013 because I'd already, 5 times. But the thing is, and this is, maybe there's some reality to this, maybe there's some fallacy to this, whatever else. But early on in Bitcoin, the gains are incredible, right? And to think the level of gains that have been achieved and the gains going forward are probably 2 different decimal point eras, right? And so I think what people are looking for is, great, what is going to be the next thing that hits early Bitcoin like multiples? And so the hope is if they can get into other cryptocurrencies early on in their adoption, that something like that will happen. What you've said, and I agree with you, is it's not an apples to apples comparison because a lot of these cryptocurrencies have a different value proposition, substantially different value proposition than Bitcoin did. They don't have the mind share. Bitcoin really is first to market and massive within mind. And then you've got the fact that in some cases it can be a bit of a rigged game, like you said. The people coming up with tokens, and that token is mined 50%, and then 50% is given off to individuals, and so it's not necessarily a fair game either. So all of these things are happening, right? I'm with you. I think that our mindsets are aligned in many ways in this space. Rather than going down this rabbit hole, though, I'm going to just take us off to a little aside, because your question, I think, was around how do you present yourself with this mindset, and how do you help people understand why you're an advocate of Bitcoin and where it could be going forward. What I'm hearing from you is that you're actually, and just let me get the words out. I don't think that you're actually an advocate of Bitcoin, right? You're an advocate of principles of which Bitcoin happens to inhabit the best so far, right? But ultimately, you have principles such as resilience, anti-censorship, store of value, all these other things that are your actual values. Bitcoin is the one that is gives you the best coverage over your values, and that's why you believe it is the best investment today. And I say that in that the whole Bitcoin versus other cryptocurrencies can get along other type of religious-ish type things. Like, are you a Microsoft guy or a Linux guy or an Apple guy, right? I don't give a fuck. Excuse my language. I don't know if this will ever be presented in the language and everything else, but I don't give a fuck. I use Apple and I use PCs and I use like Linux. I use them all in the right one in the right place. Like, I try not to get into that like religious type argument, right? And so for you and your branding, what I'm hearing you, and I really appreciate this, you're not getting religious like it's Bitcoin and it has to be a Bitcoin because it's Bitcoin. Like, if I had heard that from you in different flavors, unconsciously or otherwise, I'd have a little bit of concern. Instead, what I'm hearing you saying is, again, like going over your underlying values. So I wonder if there's a concept that really resonates with what you're trying to share and take forth, and whether it's money sovereignty or whether it's you know, some type of financial intelligence, or like, is there a larger concept beyond Bitcoin that encapsulates what you really want people to have in their life, the benefit that you want them to have? And like, is there a way to define, at least in some light way, like what the values are that lead up towards that? So then you can see that Bitcoin is being recommended, not because I'm a Bitcoin advocate, not because I'm like religiously attached to Bitcoin, but because, like, if this is what you're after, this financial sovereignty, this financial independence, or whatever else it might be, right? This return on investment, however it is in your mind, here are the things that lead up to it. And you can clearly see that Bitcoin is the path to it. And that also gives you a sanity check. Like you said, when you hear that, okay, cool, I've been on Bitcoin, it's doing these things, but I hear these other things about these other cryptocurrencies, and I need to, in my mind, figure out, I have this cognitive dissonance, I need to now figure out, is my stance still sane, and is it still in line with what I believe it is, right? Creating a structure around this may, help you with your own intellectual comparisons when it comes around this, and ensure that you don't veer off into religiosity when it comes to a particular cryptocurrency. And number two is, if something better comes along, if there is something that is truly superior to Bitcoin, it's very easy for you to communicate why you might have had a change of advice towards people, right? Because your advice is following a strategy and an ideal and a paradigm. It's not following a product, right? Versus if you're the Bitcoin guy and something better comes along and you go, sorry guys, it's not Bitcoin, it's this, then it's like the world's biggest Apple advocate going, sorry guys, you're gonna buy PCs now, right? And people are like, why? Are you leaving us? Like, I don't understand this. Like, they can't follow your train of thought because you haven't made it transparent, and thus they can't follow you on your journey. But if you can bring transparency to your thought process on this and your values and everything else, people can two things. They can follow you on this journey wherever that may lead, and it leads them towards this place they want to get to and what you're espousing anyways. And it ensures that if their values are different than yours, that they can make intelligent, personally, and this is something I believe highly in. I believe in sovereignty. I believe in empowerment. I believe in agency. Each person should be able to make their own decisions ultimately when it comes to things. And you're essentially giving them building blocks to give them even further sovereignty over their own decisions, which is an empowering thing to the individual, rather than just being the guru who's like, I say Bitcoin, do Bitcoin, right?
That's great. Yeah,
I'm putting a lot of my own values into this, and I want to make sure, like, this is nothing that I'm trying to force upon you, but the way that I look at the world, like, these are the values that are important to me, right? And how I like frame up and look at the world. So you have no obligation to me to take any of this on, but if it's useful to you, like, that's how I see this moving forward for you.